Hello, welcome to Krachwerke. Today we'll carry on with the bass. We did kind of like the basic overviews of all the tracks. Then we did guitars. Now we're on to bass. So what I've done is just recorded the bass through a DI. So this is just a DI signal to give you an idea of what the bass sounds like. I'll switch off all the effects. We'll just play one. So this is like a kind of Fender P-Bass style on the bridge pickup. Nice, decent. As you can see, a nice, decent signal. And what I've done is that same DI signal has been duplicated. So we've got two tracks. And the reason we're doing this is the DI signal is okay, but we need to do a couple of things to it. In fact, I might actually duplicate one more. So now we've got three bass tracks. You'll see why in a minute. So just switch these off for now. The first track, so as you can see here, this is just one being processed. And what we're doing is we're adding Amplitube. And in Amplitube, this is the Trace Elliott amp with a decent curve here. The reason the curve is like this is because I like to have my kick drum hit the 50-60 hertz here quite hard. So I dip the 50-60 hertz. I don't do the... We will do it in the future to show you how to do the parallel compression, where every time the bass drum hits, you dip out the bass so that you make space in the low end for everything. Most of the things I'm doing in this series are very quick and easy things to apply to tracks. And a lot of these kind of mixing things are just to get into the ballpark. Once everything is done, we then go back and EQ and compress a little bit more to get it all perfect. So the way that this bass is set up now is that it is kind of just that heavy low kind of 50-60 hertz is dipped out, and we're going to dip out more of that. And then we've got the fullness of it on the 100 hertz, and then it does the dip again around the mid-range, the 1000 kilohertz mark, or the 1 kilohertz mark, and then it goes up again, the usual place where you kind of peak the bass a bit to get a little bit of punch into it, around the 3.5, 4, 5K, depending on what it sounds like. So it's hit quite hard, so we get quite a bit of the drive in this one. I would actually leave it here. As always, I keep saying this, if you're using Amplitube, really boost the output. The bass cab is also a Trace Elliott bass, 4x10 cab. And if we look at the microphones used, it is basically a 421 and a Royer style ribbon mic, and then the room and everything else taken out. And here we can then make sure we don't peak too much. Get a nice sound on this. And as you can see here, I've already compressed the signal quite heavily. The ratio 2.8. Slow attack, slow release, so we keep some of the transients going. So we're already getting a decent sound here from a straight bass amp. Okay. The next one, we've got a couple of things that we can do. I have actually done it this way. I have mixed a bass cab with a Marshall 800. We can see what that sounds like. I'll show you that preset. Literally a standard Marshall 800 clone. Is it on low? Yeah, it's on the high setting, but with a low drive, and a standard 1968 cab, Marshall cab. Same kind of setup with the microphones. And then obviously also compressed and an EQ to match. So the EQ again here dips around the 40, 50, goes up again around the 100 to 200 mark, and then dips down again to take out the mid-range, and then comes back up around the 3.1 4K for the kind of punchy sound. So if I play that, if I solo that, you still have a decent bass sound, but it's more kind of to get punch. So if I play these together, we get a nice full sound. Now, because there are different things happening in both the amplitubes, it kind of goes out of phase, and that's why you've probably noticed I put the phase on here. I flipped the phase 180. Another thing I like to do is, let me switch Amplitube off and switch the Tech 21 on. This is the BOD TSC Audio Tech 21 bass driver plugin. It's free. It sounds quite great. It depends on what you're wanting to do. For this kind of punchier kind of bass tone, I prefer to have it mixed in with a guitar cab, an amp, rather than this one, but it does work just perfectly well as well. You can use this one by itself as well. This blend knob here blends the DI signal with the affected signal. So there's the DI only, and that's full on. So this works quite well as well. Got quite a bit of control over this. You can even then go in and blend just the DI signal as well. So as you can see, we have routed them all, taken out their master out, so they're all routed straight through the bass aux here, and they are already manipulated to a way to fit into the mix. But on the bus, we have added an EQ and a compressor, and then a multiband compressor, and we'll do that for the following reasons. Number one, the EQ, this one here is from Audio Assault. It gives, it's a nice EQ to use, and it also adds some desk kind of EQ, harmonics and distortion, so it gives a nice fuller sound. That's the only reason I'm really using this. I've used the electric bass preset, but manipulated a wee few things here and there. But it's really just to get a bit of desk and emulation going. The next one we're using is the a compressor. And the preset I've used is the mastering tight. So these are actually bus compressors, but I'm using this on bass because it's such a great sounding compressor. Again, quite a slow attack, long release, to keep the transients, and compressed it so that it retains the transients, but brings everything a little bit more equal level. The last thing in the line, which it doesn't seem we really need it, is the multiband compressor. And the reason you use a multiband compressor is because with the bass, you don't want to compress everything necessarily all the time. You want to compress certain areas harder than others. So what a multiband compressor does, it allows you to split up into different bandwidths, and compress those different bandwidths differently. So for example, this low end here, up to 100, we're compressing much higher. So we're compressing it to a ratio, I'm usually around 2 to 3, right? And the reason we need to do that is because we need to control the bottom end. That's where the bass and some of the low end of the guitar and the drums and the toms sit. So we need to control that, otherwise it just becomes muddy. This next region here also needs to be controlled a bit more. That is the region around about 200 to 300. If the guitar muting starts, which we will actually go to right now in this section here, when that guitar muting starts, you get all these kind of overtones, and it kind of you have got this bass build up. And what you don't want then is that all to, overflow and become this kind of flubby, muddy mess. So again, controlling this section here is quite important. And then you can leave the top open a bit more, because it doesn't matter so much. There's not a lot of high-end information anyway. So these are pretty much how bass is done. Now again, the bass is done in this way for the song. This is not how you do it for all of it. Some of these things are implemented to get a nice sound of the bass, and others are to control the low end and bring out the bass itself within the whole mix. And we'll probably add some more EQ to this later on once we're a bit closer to a final mix. So we've got now 3 duplicates to overview. A bass amp implemented with its compressions, an EQ, a guitar amp mixed with the clean DI signal over here. All of that is bussed into a bass auxiliary bus with some desk EQ emulation, as well as a compressor and a multiband compressor. Now I've also got to keep reiterating, to get the audio right here, I'm mixing on headphones, so it might not sound 100% to you, because I should be trying to mix through the monitors. So that is now what we sound like. Let's go from the start. For now, for the interim period, I'm happy with this bass sound, and we will leave it at that. Next episode is vocals. Yes.